We're going to talk some more about anarthas, because that's the way you get to where you just are happy all the time. Is you get rid of your anarthas. Get rid of your what was that? Your misfortune. That's a good way to translate anarthas. Misfortune. Because artha is fortune. Artha is wealth or fortune. And spiritual fortune, especially spiritual wealth. So if you don't have artha, you have anartha, which is misfortune. You lose everything that you got. So we've already talked about the four main kinds of anarthas. Svarupa Brahma, illusion about spiritual identity. Asat-trishna, thirst for that which is unreal. In other words, material enjoyment. Aparādha, offenses. And hridaya daurbalya, weakness of heart. Now there's another whole class of anarthas, which are called suffering. Uttha. Uttha means when we get something that we don't want and then we suffer because of it. Now there are different kinds of getting what you don't want. And there are four kinds named here. Duṣkṛti-uttha, suffering arising from past sins. Sukṛti-uttha, suffering arising from previous pious activities. Aparādha-uttha, arising from offenses. And bhakti-uttha, arising in relation to bhakti. Now you might say, well, how can past pious activities cause us suffering? And the answer is that uttha, what it really means, is separation from Kṛṣṇa. Just like Uddhava's name, Uddhava, means the association with the ultimate. And similarly, uttha means separation from the ultimate. You see? So uttha is actually the root of all different kinds of suffering. Because when we jiva souls, we're spiritual entities, and when we're not in association with Kṛṣṇa, then we're suffering. Because we're not in our constitutional position of service to the Supreme Lord. We're not in our original eternal identity as devotees of the Lord, and we're not performing our original constitutional activities, which is a mode of service that brings us great enjoyment in association with the Lord. So the root of all suffering is separation from the Lord, or material consciousness. See? We've been over this numerous times. This is very fundamental to our whole philosophy. But we have to see how these different anarthas manifest from different forms of suffering. Some of them are due to our past impious activities. For example, because we have some sinful reactions coming from a previous lifetime. In this lifetime, we have to, let's say, for example, take intoxication or have illicit sex life or otherwise break the principles of devotional service. We're forced to. We can't help ourselves. It just happens. And this is suffering, because anything that is not spiritual enjoyment is suffering. Anything that's not enjoying in association with Kṛṣṇa is actually suffering from the point of view of pure devotional service. It's uttha. It's separation from the ultimate truth. So we want to be in association with Kṛṣṇa, but we can't. Prabhupada used to talk about asking people to chant. He would say, chant, chant, chant. And they would say, can't, can't, can't. And then he was kind of joking. And everybody would laugh. And then he would say very seriously, they are cursed by Yamaraj. Cursed by Yamaraj. That means in their previous life they performed so many offensive or sinful activities that in this life they're actually cursed by Yamaraj, that they don't get the chance to perform devotional service. Their intelligence is so perverted that they cannot understand the value of chanting the holy name of God. So when they are approached by the devotees and they get the opportunity, they reject it. They don't accept the association of the devotees, and they don't accept the process of chanting, which is the dharma for the age of Kali Yuga. So if you reject dharma, it's the same as rejecting the Lord, because that's the path that leads to him. So people who are unfortunate, people who are uttha, who are separated from Kṛṣṇa by force almost, they can't engage in this process of dharma. Sankirtan yajna. So what about people who have a lot of pious activities? Well, we also see that those people can't engage in devotional service either. If someone has tremendous pious activities in a previous lifetime, then in this lifetime we see that they're very wealthy, very beautiful, very famous, or very knowledgeable. Maybe they have a lot of power, political power, or family wealth, or something like that. And they cannot engage in devotional service either, because the results of their pious activities get in the way. Now this is the opposite thing. Instead of being cursed by Yamaraj, actually they're blessed by Yamaraj. But because they're so puffed up and they're so identified with their good fortune, they can't imagine giving up part of their good fortune in devotional service activities. And so they suffer separation, just as if they were sinful. Well, try to understand. If someone is given a lot of facility and they don't engage it, that's just as bad as if someone has a lot of sinful activities and they reject. Either way, they're rejecting the opportunity for devotional service. One because they're too sinful, and the other because they're too pious. Too much material piety means usually that they go to the heavenly planets and like that. But if someone is born on this earth with that kind of background, means they have so much sense gratification, they have so much material engagement, so much material activity. It's like they don't have time. One of the famous devotees of Srila Prabhupada was the Beatle, George Harrison. And George tried to engage other stars. Mia Farrow, Donovan. Even at one time he tried to preach to, what was that guy? Robert Zimmerman? You remember Robert Zimmerman? Bob Dylan. before he renamed himself, to sound more American. He was Bob Zimmerman. You don't know Bob. What's the matter with you? Anyway, he preached to, who was that famous comedian that did the Pink Panther? You know who I mean, the British guy? Yeah, Inspector Clouseau. Peter Sellers, right. Peter Sellers was some kind of a devotee. There's a scene in the Pink Panther, Return of the Pink Panther, where he's being chased through this hotel. And he has to climb outside the window, and he goes along the ledge, you know, and then he climbs into the next room's window. And there's a couple in the room. I don't want to get into what they were doing. But there's a shot of Clouseau standing next to the fireplace. And the woman is, you know, in bed with the man, and she screams, "Oh my God!" And there's this really quick shot of Sellers standing by the fireplace, and there's that famous picture of Govinda hanging over the fireplace. And he just goes, "Mine too." And that's it. Very quick cut, and that's all. That's the only mention of Kṛṣṇa or reference to Kṛṣṇa in any of his films. You had to look really fast to see that. But so none of these stars came out publicly about their interest in Kṛṣṇa consciousness. Why not? Well, I guess they were afraid it would hurt their popularity. If they're identified with such a, small, kind of fringy movement like that. Only George actually stayed with it, and he recorded "My Sweet Lord," which was a tremendous smash hit all over the world, and probably got more people to chant Hare Krishna than all the ISKCON temples put together. So if a person